Welcome back. I am one of the things that as a leader, when we begin to talk about change and getting prepared for the next year, I really want to paint a scenario that, can be difficult for leaders. But if you're working in a company and you know that your prices are going to have to change, things are going to have to change, and you really want to keep your consumer that is supporting you to stay with you. What do you recommend that these leaders do in order to make sure that the authenticity is there, the realism is there, so that our customers now understand why we're doing what we're doing and what the reasons are?
I think that's a really important question that a lot of people struggle with. And the first thing that I want to tell you is to go back to your mindset. Is your mindset to get out ahead of these things? If it is, then you're going to get out ahead of it. You're going to create some type of deliverable content, whether that's flyers, emailers, postings on a website and social media. We do a lot of videos for our clients when there's any type of critical change where we really need to catch their attention, and make sure that they watch it. And so, a couple of four examples is that in the tax firm, the accounting firm, IRS and states are changing tax code all of the time now, right?
Mhm.
And so we have to determine, is this a significant change or is this an insignificant change? And anytime there's a significant change, we'll create a little video and a flyer and we'll blast out two or three sequences at least notifying them of the changes that are coming. Sometimes those changes are our pricing, right? So, for example, we know this whole BOI that came out from FinCEN, and even though there's an injunction and everything, the principle that just occurred over this last year is important. They made this announcement. It's going to be this highly regulated, highly penalized thing if you don't do it. And so we needed to educate people. So we sent out education. We needed to explain the law, explain the process, and explain the pricing. This is something new that someone else threw into our lap. We now have to bill you for. It's outside of the existing scope. So, in saying that language to our clients, they understand, yes, 3 years ago when I became your client, you could not have agreed to something that didn't exist in the future. And we explain that to our clients, one, the first time we meet them, again, when we engage them as clients, and then repetitively throughout. So, we are constantly looking to get out ahead and preemptively overcome objections, problems, scope creep, price changes, industry changes.
That's excellent. You know what that really says is that you do a very good job of communicating, right? And that communication becomes the key and the thread to our, consumers, customers, clients, whatever they may be, to ensure that they don't feel like, oh my gosh, you're doing this and you didn't let me know, or you waited till the last minute to tell me. I couldn't prepare. I didn't know. My budget isn't ready for this. Now I'm going to have to cut back on services. So it's really interesting in terms of the way you talk about the constant communication. And, it's
Yes.
been my experience that when you know things like this are coming about at the beginning of the year, if you can get to your clients around August, beginning of September, so that they understand, it's less of a last minute thing, right? In
Right.
terms of helping them, to move forward. I really appreciate those insights. So let's give our audience something that they can take home with them. We talked about pivot. We talked pivoting for the next year. We talked about change for the next year and all of the things that embarks. I'd love to give them a playbook to utilize of things that they can actually do to accomplish those things. Love your thoughts.
Excellent. So, in my leadership paths, I have the business foundation programs and the leadership lab, and both of them contain an actual playbook that we do. That one works specifically on the leader, and the other playbook works specifically on the team. And so, what we do is, I want to take you the metaphor for this is if you've ever seen one of those old engine diagrams where somebody's got like an engine or a transmission or like an old
Hmm.
train, and it's
Uh-huh.
the exploded view, right? It's the exploded view of that engine where you can see every nut and bolt and part and crankshaft and everything is all blown up, and you see literally everything is labeled in detail. Our metaphor is that we're going to work our playbook to explode your workflow and your team roles and responsibilities, and we're going to come up with kind of a three-dimensional layer for it. What is the actual department, division, role that this is being executed? Is this for, let's go to accounting? Is this a tax uh, need, an advisory need, a bookkeeping need, or an admin need. And so we would assign the task need, the type of task. We would assign where it is chronologically in the process. So where does the nut and bolt go in? Which gets screwed in first, right? And then we would assign job roles to it, not names, job roles and responsibilities. From there, we can take our final A to Z diagram from when we first contact the customer to when we deliver the final product or piece of material, and we have a play by play, literal workbook, action plan, playbook. And it has everyone's roles and responsibilities and where every piece of the puzzle or department or directory or software system is located. And it's literally an exploded view of our workflow. Now, guess what? This takes a little bit of effort the first time you do it, as do most first efforts take the greatest effort. So we bring in the entire team. We list all task projects, jobs, roles, and responsibility on a worksheet, on a spreadsheet that we develop. We purposely identify duplications, restrict funnels and choke points, and then we start assigning roles and shifting roles. Who else can be doing that? So now the leader gets to see the big picture. The team that may be just working in a silo gets to see the big picture. This is how you fit into the big puzzle. You have value. You can now see the mission overall and the vision of where we're going. And everybody gets a ton of clarity, a ton of input. Hey, I can do this. Or, I'm admin. I feel like I don't need to be giving that piece of advice out to somebody. Is there a tax preparer or an analyst that can do that? And then we shift, we do that. And what happens is after a handful of meetings and a few hours of effort, we just provided absolute clarity to everyone involved in the firm. And we
Mhm.
provided absolute buy in to exactly what you are supposed to be and not supposed to be doing, and then how it results in the end product. And now it's just a matter of hit the go button and watch the team succeed.
That's fantastic. And one of the things that, as I think about, leading and moving forward, that I also think is important when you talk about a playbook are the details that go into the playbook for your staff, right? We constantly are revising our strategies. We're looking at our vision, our mission. We're looking at what is going to be achievable. What can we do this year? What are we being realistic about? And not setting goals that are so far out that the mind just can't realize it, because we know that mind likes to be positive. And if we make it so far out and we fail over and over again, all we do is hurt the mind and the brain as we're moving forward. So I think, when we begin to talk about these targets and what we're going to do, we have to be realistic. Now, with that said, doesn't mean you can't have a stretch goal. Everybody can have a stretch goal in terms of what they're going to look for, but really being realistic about each one of those things. So, as our, employees, we want them to let them know here's what the trajectory looks like next year. Here are the economy things that are really impacting us. You need to watch these, read about them, know about them within our industry. Here are the things that are really affecting us internally, right? That we have to do. Here may be some organizational internal things that we need to change as we continue to move forward. So, those are some of the other things. I'd love to get your insight. Is there anything else that you would add or think about from a playbook to your staff?
When looking to develop your playbook, humans do something very consistently across the board in corporate America and even in personal goal setting. We actually significantly overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we significantly underestimate what we can do in 3 and 5 and especially 10 years. And so what happens is I help people do kind of a layer of things. I help them dial in, like you said, reasonable goals, and I have them frame their goals with parameters. Okay, this is your fantasy version if everything works out exactly the way we think. Give me your
Mhm.
fantasy goal, right? And that's your 12-month goal. I say, okay, now give me your bare minimum. If nothing else and the whole world fights against us, we have to, at bare minimum, gotten this far. So if you land somewhere in the middle, which is very likely, you're going to be very satisfied with your goals.
Mhm.
Then what I do is I say, let's look at a 3 year goal. Usually, most people, unless it's specific industry or processes, I'll cap my original consultation at a 3 year goal. Okay. And I'll say, this is your 3 year goal. And I will poke and prod them saying, it needs to be better than that. It needs to be better than that. You're
Mhm.
not giving yourself and your staff and the technology enough credit. Because if you get year 1 goal dialed in that range, then 2 and 3 are going to prosper a lot better. And I also focus on saying something will get in your way. there's going to be a series of obstacles and hurdles.
Mhm.
And listen, life is going to throw stuff at you. You're going to have somebody will make a mistake and an error that costs you money. Is it a mistake? Was it malicious? You know, there's going to be some type of other recession. There's going to be some type of other natural disaster. People are going to get sick and quit through natural attrition. Somebody may die, right? There's going to be some stuff in your life. Are you prepared to measure your goal against these things and move on? Now, other really good things are going to happen. You're going to have your biggest, fanciest client refer you their best buddy, and you're going to get a whole nother thing of revenue that pops in there. So brace for both, dial your goals in appropriately. Don't overshoot what you can do in a year. And by golly, don't underestimate what you're capable of in three.
I love that process. I love what you're talking about in terms of process of being able to follow. And I think that what goes along with that is also succession planning, right? To your
Yes,
point,
absolutely.
somebody leaves, somebody dies, something happens, because you're right. Life is gonna life, right? Life gets to life in and things happen you have no control over. And you got to be able to pivot and be able to respond when that happens, right? And then
Exactly.
to your point about mindset, it's all about when you have tragedies and challenges, it's how we deal with them and how we're letting others watch us deal with them, because that
Yes.
sets the tone and the trajectory of how people are really going to feel. If I trust you and you're authentic and real, then I believe, okay, if you say it's going to be okay, we're going to work through this and it will be okay. But when we don't trust and we don't have that, also leads to a lot of confusion, a lot of people saying, I don't really want to be here, I want to do something different, and a lack of commitment. Ryan, I have so enjoyed having you back on the show again. I always love speaking with you and always learn a lot. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is mine.
Appreciate it. Well, tune in for the next show and where you can what? Ignite your fire. Look forward to seeing you then.